They made her scrub the bathroom floor with her bare hands while live streaming it to the entire school. What they didn't know was that those same hands had just won the National Junior Karate Championship 3 weeks earlier. When the principal walked in 47 seconds later, 2 star wrestlers were unconscious and one was begging for mercy. The video that was supposed to humiliate Harper Mitchell instead became the most viral takedown in American high school history. But why was the school's star student hiding her identity? The truth would expose a conspiracy that reached the superintendent's office. What happened in those 47 seconds shocked a nation. Before we dive into how one girl's secret strength exposed the darkest corners of McKinley High, I'm curious, have you ever witnessed something that completely changed how you saw someone? Because after today's story, you'll never judge anyone by their quiet exterior again. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of McKinley High's library, casting long shadows across the polished wooden tables where Harper Mitchell sat surrounded by her advanced placement chemistry notes. At 17, Harper possessed the kind of understated beauty that made people look twice but never quite remember why. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, usually pulled back in a simple ponytail that kept it out of her face while she studied. Deep green eyes, framed by naturally long lashes, held an intelligence that her teachers praised and her classmates resented. Yet despite her academic excellence, Harper had mastered the art of invisibility. She always chose seats in corners, walked close to walls, and kept her voice barely above a whisper when called upon in class. Her oversized sweaters, bought from the local thrift store, hung loose on her 5'4" frame, concealing what lay beneath. Those who bothered to notice her at all saw exactly what she wanted them to see, a quiet scholarship kid who knew her place. What they couldn't see were the callous knuckles she carefully hid beneath long sleeves, or the precise way she moved through crowded hallways. Her body automatically maintaining perfect balance and spacing. They had no idea that every Tuesday and Thursday after school, while they were at cheerleading practice or football training, Harper was in a converted warehouse across town. Perfecting techniques that could disable a grown man in seconds, she was deep in concentration, working through a particularly challenging molecular structure problem. When the library's heavy oak doors burst open with enough force to make several students jump, Austin Reed strode in like he owned the place, and given his father's position as district attorney and his status as captain of the state championship wrestling team, he practically did. At 6'2" with sun-bleached hair and the kind of athletic build that came from years of privileged training, Austin was McKinley High's golden boy. Behind him, as always, were his loyal shadows, Caleb Wilson and Ethan Parker, both varsity wrestlers who had learned long ago that their social survival depended on staying in Austin's good graces. Caleb, stocky and aggressive, served as Austin's muscle when needed. Ethan, lean and clever, handled the digital warfare that had become Austin's specialty. Harper's stomach tightened as she watched them scan the library. She knew that look. Austin was hunting, and she had a sinking feeling she was the prey. Quickly, she lowered her head, hoping against hope that he would pass by without noticing her. But luck, as it often did when it came to Austin Reed, was not on her side. Well, Austin's voice boomed across the library, earning him sharp looks from Mrs. Henderson, the librarian. He ignored them, his ice-blue eyes locked on Harper as he sauntered over to her table. If it isn't the mysterious Harper Mitchell, you know, I've been looking for you. Harper's fingers tightened around her pencil, but she forced herself to look up, meeting his gaze with what she hoped was calm indifference. Can I help you with something, Austin? He pulled out the chair across from her and spun it around, straddling it backward in that casually arrogant way that suggested the world existed solely for his entertainment. Caleb and Ethan flanked him, their presence turning her quiet study corner into a suffocating box. Actually, you can, Austin said, flashing the $1,000,000 smile that had charmed countless teachers into overlooking his behavior. I've been thinking about our little academic competition. You beating Madison for valedictorian really got me thinking about fairness. The way he said fairness made Harper's skin crawl. She had witnessed Austin's version of fairness before, watched how he collected victories like trophies, how students who challenged his perceived natural order found themselves facing mysterious consequences, their lockers vandalized, their college recommendation letters somehow lost, their reputations destroyed by carefully planted rumors. I worked hard for my grades, Harper said carefully, her voice steady despite the rapid beating of her heart. Just like everyone else, Austin leaned forward, his voice dropping to a lower register that he probably thought was intimidating. See, that's where you're wrong. Not everyone else had to work for it. Some of us, we're just naturally better, born for success. But people like you, his gaze traveled dismissively over her thrift store sweater. You have to try so hard. It's almost disperate. Harper closed her textbook slowly, gathering her materials with deliberate calm. If you'll excuse me, I have to get to my next class. She stood up, but Caleb moved to block her path. The library had gone completely quiet now, other students pretending to study while secretly watching the drama unfold. Mrs. Henderson had conveniently disappeared into the back office, avoiding what was about to become a very uncomfortable situation. You're making a mistake, Austin said, standing as well, his full height towering over Harper's more modest frame. See, I've been talking to my dad about scholarship allocations. Amazing how these things can get reviewed. Budget cuts, character evaluations. It would be such a shame if someone's funding got questioned. Harper felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Not fear, not even anger, just a crystal clear certainty that this conversation was about more than just academic rivalry. What do you want, Austin? His smile widened, showing perfect teeth that had cost his parents $15,000 in orthodontic work. I want you to understand something about respect, about knowing your place, about what happens when scholarship kids forget that they're here on charity. Ethan pulled out his phone, not even trying to hide the fact that he was recording. This is going to be good, he murmured to Caleb, who chuckled in response. Harper looked around the library, noting the exits, the positioning of the other students, the location of the security cameras. Her uncle's words echoed in her mind, always be aware of your environment. A true warrior fights with her mind first, her body only when necessary. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Harper said quietly, her voice gaining an edge that surprised even her. I'm not here on charity. I earned my place through merit, and I won't be intimidated by someone who thinks Daddy's job makes him untouchable. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Austin's face flushed red, the kind of color that appeared when someone utterly unaccustomed to defiance finally encountered it. Caleb stepped closer, close enough that Harper could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the faint scent of protein powder and entitlement. You have no idea who you're messing with, Austin said, his voice low and threatening. My father prosecutes people like your family. One phone call about character issues, about potential fraud in your scholarship application, and your whole future disappears. Before Harper could respond, a familiar voice cut through the tension like a blade. Is there a problem here? Sophia Martinez appeared like an avenging angel, her 5'10" athletic frame and fierce expression making even the wrestlers step back slightly. As captain of the girls' soccer team and Harper's closest friend since freshman year, Sophia had a reputation for taking no nonsense from anyone, regardless of their social status or family connections. No problem, Austin said smoothly, his politician's smile sliding back into place. Just having a friendly chat about academic standards. Looked more like harassment to me, Sophia said, moving to stand beside Harper. Funny how your friendly chats always seem to involve cornering people 3-1. Austin's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something ugly underneath. Careful, Martinez. Your scholarship could use some reviewing too. Amazing how these financial aid decisions can change based on new information. Sophia laughed, but there was no humor in it. My scholarship is academic merit. Read. Full ride to Stanford already confirmed. But please, call your daddy and try to explain how the district attorney's office investigates high school financial aid. I'm sure the local news would love that story. For a moment, Austin looked genuinely confused, as if the concept of consequences he couldn't buy his way out of was foreign to him. Then his expression hardened. He turned back to Harper, and something in his eyes made her blood run cold. This isn't over, he said quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. You have no idea what you've started. But you're going to learn, I promise you that. With that, he strode out of the library, Caleb and Ethan trailing behind him like obedient dogs. As soon as they were gone, Harper sank back into her chair, her hands shaking slightly. You okay? Sophia asked, sitting down beside her and placing a protective hand on her shoulder. Harper nodded, though her mind was racing. Thanks for showing up when you did. Austin Reed is such a pig, Sophia said, her voice filled with disgust. I can't believe he thought he could just threaten you like that. Like you're some kind of accessory he can control. Harper gathered her books, her movements careful and controlled. He's not going to let this go, is he? Sophia's expression grew serious. No, he's not. Austin doesn't handle being told no very well. Remember what happened to Ashley Thompson last year? Harper did remember. Ashley had challenged Austin's claim that her family's Mexican restaurant was probably hiring illegals, and within a week, she'd been completely ostracized. Austin had used his influence to get her kicked off the debate team, spread rumors about her family's immigration status, and made sure she wasn't invited to any social events. Ashley had spent the rest of the year eating lunch alone in empty classrooms. I can handle Austin Reed, Harper said quietly, but even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. Not because she couldn't defend herself physically, that had never been the problem. The issue was that physical confrontation would expose her secret, and once that happened, everything would change. As they left the library together, Harper couldn't shake the feeling that Austin's threat hadn't been empty. She'd seen that look before. In her uncle's dojo, when new students thought they could intimidate their way to respect, it was the wounded pride of someone who'd never been told no, mixed with the kind of rage that came from having one's perceived natural order challenged. The next morning, Harper knew something was wrong. The moment she walked through McKinley High's main entrance, conversations stopped mid-sentence as she passed. Groups of students huddled together, phones in hand, glancing up at her with expressions ranging from pity to mockery to outright disgust. "What's going on?" Harper asked, when she found Sophia at their usual meeting spot by the lockers. Sophia's face was grim as she held out her phone. Austin didn't waste any time. On the screen was a post from McKinley Truth, an anonymous social media account that served as the school's digital gossip mill. The post featured Harper's school photo, but with cruel additions: devil horns drawn on her head, the word fake scrawled across her forehead in digital red ink. The caption read, "Breaking. Harper Mitchell thinks she's better than everyone else. Little Miss Perfect turned down tutoring Austin Reed because she thinks she's too good to help her classmates." Sources say she called him beneath her academic level and said she only associates with future Ivy League material. Who does this scholarship girl think she is? Time for a reality check. Number entitled Number, Get Off Your High Horse Number Scholarship Snob. The post already had over 300 likes and dozens of comments, each one more vicious than the last. Harper felt her face burn with humiliation and rage as she scrolled through them. Always knew she was stuck up. Scholarship kids thinking they own the place, someone needs to humble her. Bet her family doesn't even pay taxes. Send her back to whatever trailer park she came from. "This is slander," Sophia said, her voice shaking with anger. "We need to report this to Principal Davidson." But Harper knew how these things worked. By the time any adult took action, the damage would be done. The rumor would spread, morphing and growing with each retelling. By lunch, half the school would believe she was an elitist snob who looked down on everyone. "He said he'd make me regret it," Harper said quietly, handing the phone back to Sophia. The day was a nightmare. Everywhere Harper went, she felt eyes on her, whispers following her down hallways. Students she'd known for years suddenly acted like she was invisible, or worse, like she was something disgusting they'd stepped in. In advanced placement chemistry, her lab partner, usually friendly and chatty, asked to switch partners. In English, someone had left a note on her desk that read, "Princess Harper thinks she's too good for us peasants." The teacher, Mr. Collins, pretended not to notice even as Harper crumpled the note with shaking hands. By lunchtime, Harper couldn't face the cafeteria. She knew Austin and his crew would be holding court at their usual table, basking in their handiwork. Instead, she slipped away to the old music room in the East Wing, a place that had been abandoned after budget cuts eliminated the orchestra program. It was her secret refuge, a place where she could practice her forms without anyone watching. She pushed open the heavy door and froze. The room wasn't empty. Sitting on one of the dusty chairs, scrolling through his phone with a satisfied smirk, was Austin Reed. "I figured you'd come here," he said without looking up. "You're predictable, Harper. That's what makes this so easy." Harper's hand tightened on the door handle. Every instinct told her to run, but something, pride, maybe, or just exhaustion from running all day, kept her rooted in place. "What do you want, Austin?" He finally looked up, and the cold satisfaction in his eyes made her skin crawl. "I want you to understand something. This," he waved his phone, showing the social media post, is just the beginning. Every day you continue to think you're better than me, it's going to get worse." Harper stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "All because I wouldn't tutor you?" Austin laughed, but there was no humor in it. "It's not about tutoring. It's about respect. You disrespected me in front of witnesses, in front of my crew. Do you have any idea what that does to my reputation?" "Your reputation?" Harper's voice was incredulous. "What about mine? You're destroying my life because your ego got bruised." Austin stood up, moving closer with the predatory grace of someone who'd never faced real opposition. "You can end this right now. Apologize publicly. Tell everyone you were wrong to be so arrogant. Admit that you need to learn some humility. And maybe," his smile was all teeth and no warmth, "I'll call off the dogs." Harper felt something inside her snap. Years of keeping her head down, of avoiding conflict, of letting people like Austin Reed walk all over others because it was easier than standing up, all of it crystallized into a single moment of clarity. "No," she said simply. Austin blinked, clearly not expecting that response. "No," Harper repeated, stronger this time. "I won't apologize for having standards. I won't pretend to be less than I am. And I won't let you bully me into submission. Do your worst, Austin. Spread all the lies you want, but I will never, ever give you what you want." For a moment, Austin's mask slipped entirely, revealing the ugly rage beneath. His hands clenched into fists, and Harper automatically shifted her weight, her body preparing for violence even as her mind stayed calm. "You're going to regret this," he snarled. "I already do," Harper said quietly. "I regret living in a world where people like you think you can take whatever you want. I regret going to a school where money and status matter more than basic human decency. But mostly, I regret not standing up to you sooner." She turned to leave, but Austin's voice stopped her. 3:45 p.m., he said. "Gym. Be there." Harper looked back at him. "Why would I do that?" His smile was all teeth and no warmth. "Because if you don't, I'll make sure every college you've applied to gets a very interesting package. Your art portfolio, the one you've been working on for 3 years, I know where you keep it. Your laptop with all your essays and projects. Amazing how easy it is to accidentally destroy someone's entire academic career." Harper's blood ran cold. Her art portfolio represented years of work, her only chance at getting into a good program. Her laptop contained everything. College essays, recommendation letters, projects she couldn't recreate. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "Try me," Austin said coldly. 3:45. "Come alone, and maybe we can work something out. Don't show, and by tomorrow morning, you'll have nothing left." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Harper went through the motions of attending class, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought about going to Principal Davidson, but what would she say? Austin's father practically funded half the school's programs. Without proof, it would be her word against his. She thought about telling her mother, but the shame of even explaining the situation made her feel sick. Sarah Mitchell had worked 2 jobs for years to give Harper opportunities she never had. How could she tell her mother that their daughter was being targeted by the town's most powerful family? By the time 3:30 p.m. rolled around, Harper had made her decision. She would go to the gym, face whatever Austin had planned, and find a way through it. She'd survived worse, though few people knew that the shy, quiet girl everyone saw was a carefully constructed facade built to hide the warrior underneath. As she changed into her PE clothes in the empty locker room, she always kept a spare set in her locker for emergencies. Harper caught sight of herself in the mirror. The girl looking back at her seemed fragile, almost breakable, but as she pulled her hair back into a tight ponytail and rolled her shoulders, loosening muscles that held more strength than anyone suspected, a different person began to emerge. Her uncle's words echoed in her mind. "The art of war is not in seeking conflict, but in ending it decisively when it finds you." Conflict had found her, whether she wanted it or not. The gymnasium was eerily quiet when Harper pushed open the heavy doors at exactly 3:45 p.m. The usual after-school sports practices had been mysteriously canceled, leaving the vast space empty except for 4 figures standing in the center of the basketball court. Austin was there, of course flanked by Caleb and Ethan, but it was the 4th person who made Harper's heart sink. Madison Pierce, senior class social media queen and Austin's on and off girlfriend, stood with her phone raised, clearly ready to record whatever was about to happen and spread it across every platform she could access. and spread out on the floor around them were the contents of Harper's art portfolio, 3 years of work scattered like trash. Her laptop sat on the ground near Austin's feet, and she could see her scholarship application forms crumpled nearby. "Right on time," Austin said, his voice echoing in the empty space. "I was starting to think you'd chickened out." Harper walked forward slowly, every sense on high alert. The gym's emergency exits were locked. She could see the chains from here. The main doors she'd entered through were the only way out, and Caleb was already moving to position himself between her and escape. "My portfolio," Harper said, her voice barely above a whisper as she saw her watercolor paintings torn and stepped on, her charcoal drawings smeared beyond recognition. "Oh, these?" Austin kicked at a painting she'd spent months perfecting. "Yeah, we got a little bored waiting. But don't worry, there's still plenty left to destroy. Unless what?" Harper asked, though she already knew. "Unless you finally learn your place," Austin said, beginning to circle her like a predator. "See, I've been thinking, a simple apology isn't enough anymore. You've wasted my time, embarrassed me, made me work for something that should have been freely given. So now the price has gone up." Ethan picked up her laptop, holding it carelessly. Shame if this were to have an accident. All those college applications gone, all those essays deleted, years of work destroyed. "Here's what's going to happen," Austin continued, his voice gaining confidence as he saw Harper's distress. "You're going to get on your knees and scrub this floor with your bare hands. Madison here is going to film it. And tomorrow, everyone's going to see Harper Mitchell for what she really is, a nobody who needs to learn respect." Harper felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Not fear, not even anger, just a crystal clear certainty that this ended today, one way or another. "No," she said simply. Austin's eyebrows rose. "No? Did you see what we did to your precious art? Do you see what we're about to do to your future?" "I see bullies," Harper said, her voice gaining strength. "I see cowards who think destroying someone else's work makes them powerful. I see boys who are so insecure that a simple refusal sends them into a spiral." Caleb stepped forward, laptop in his hands. "Wrong answer," he said, raising it above his head. That's when Harper moved. To the watching students, it must have seemed like she teleported. One moment she was standing still, the next she was in motion, her body flowing with the controlled power of years of training. She reached Caleb before he could react, her hand shooting up to catch his wrist in a grip that made him cry out in pain. A quick twist, a repositioning of weight, and Caleb found himself flying through the air, the laptop safely plucked from his grasp before he crashed to the ground hard. Harper set the laptop down gently, then turned to face the others, her stance now completely different. Gone was the hunched, defensive posture of the scared scholarship kid. In its place stood someone who moved with the fluid grace of a trained fighter. "My name is Harper Mitchell," she said, her voice ringing with quiet authority. "I've been training in martial arts since I was 7 years old. I have a third-degree black belt in karate, 2 years of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and more self-defense training than all of you combined. I've kept this secret because I wanted a normal high school experience. But you've taken that from me." Austin laughed, but it sounded forced. "You expect us to believe that? Nice bluff." Ethan charged at her, trying to tackle her while she was distracted. Harper sidestepped smoothly, using his momentum against him, redirecting him with a perfectly executed hip toss that sent him crashing into the bleachers with a metallic clang that echoed through the gym. "That's 2 down," Harper said calmly, never taking her eyes off Austin and Madison. Madison had stopped filming, her face pale as she processed what she was witnessing. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Harper was supposed to be crying, begging, broken. Austin's face had gone red with rage and humiliation. "You think you're special because you know some moves? This doesn't change anything. My father—" "Your father," Harper interrupted, "is about to have much bigger problems than a high school disciplinary issue." She pulled out her phone, pressing a button that stopped a recording app. "Everything you've said and done here today has been documented. The threats, the destruction of my property, the attempted blackmail, and this," she gestured to the scattered artwork and crumpled papers. "This is going to look really bad on the security footage." Austin's eyes darted to the cameras positioned around the gym. In his rage, he'd forgotten they existed. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice cracked slightly. Harper smiled, and it was the same smile she'd worn in the music room, the one that promised consequences. Am I? The gym doors burst open, and Principal Davidson strode in, followed by Coach Williams and two security guards. Madison's live stream, the one she'd thought was private, had been automatically saved to the school's monitoring system when she'd used the school's Wi-Fi to broadcast. "What the hell is going on here?" Principal Davidson demanded, then stopped short as he took in the scene. Austin and his crew disheveled and scattered across the gym floor, Harper standing calmly in the center, her destroyed artwork spread around like evidence of a crime. "I can explain everything," Harper said, holding up her phone, "and I have it all recorded." Austin's face went white as he realized the magnitude of his situation. This wasn't going to be another incident that Daddy's money could make disappear. This was public, documented, and about to become very, very expensive. Harper looked at him one last time, and when she spoke, her voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who had just discovered their own power. "You wanted to teach me about respect, Austin. Consider this, your first lesson." The silence that followed Harper's words was deafening. Austin Reed, quarterback and golden boy of McKinley High, stood frozen as the weight of his situation crashed down around him. Principal Davidson's eyes moved between the scattered artwork, the security cameras that had captured everything, and Harper's phone still recording in her steady hand. "Security footage," Coach Williams said grimly, pulling out his own device. "I've been monitoring the feeds since we got the alert about unauthorized gym access. Every threat, every piece of destroyed property, every moment of this harassment is documented." Austin's legs seemed to give out beneath him. He sank onto the bleachers, his face cycling through disbelief, rage, and finally, desperate fear. "This isn't how it was supposed to go," he whispered. Madison Pierce, who had been frantically trying to delete her livestream, looked up with horror as she realized her mistake. "I can't delete it. The school system automatically saved it when I used the Wi-Fi." "Good thing too," Coach Williams said, his military background evident in his commanding presence, "because that stream went live to over 200 students before you tried to take it down. Half the school watched Harper defend herself, and the other half is seeing the replay." Ethan Parker, still groaning from his collision with the bleachers, struggled to sit up. "Coach, we were just messing around. It got out of hand." "You destroyed 3 years of artwork," Coach Williams cut him off. "You stole and vandalized private property. You recorded yourselves committing these crimes, and you did it all while making threats about ruining this young woman's future. There's nothing playful about felony, harassment, and destruction of property." Principal Davidson, who had remained suspiciously quiet, finally spoke. "Now, let's not get carried away. These are good kids from good families. I'm sure we can handle this internally." "Actually, we can't," Harper said, her voice cutting through the principal's damage control attempt. She held up her phone, showing a contact screen. "I called the police 15 minutes ago, right after Austin made his final threat. They're already on their way." Austin's head snapped up. "You called the cops? Are you insane? Do you know who my father is?" "I know exactly who he is," Harper replied calmly. "District Attorney Richard Reed, the man who's built his career on being tough on crime and holding people accountable for their actions. I'm very curious to see how he handles his own son committing multiple felonies on camera." The color drained from Austin's face as he realized the true scope of his predicament. This wasn't just about school discipline anymore. This was about criminal charges, public humiliation, and watching his carefully constructed future crumble in real time. Caleb Wilson, who had been sitting on the floor holding his wrist since Harper's takedown, finally found his voice. "Harper, please, we're sorry, okay? We'll pay for the artwork, we'll leave you alone. You'll face the consequences of your choices," Harper said firmly. "Just like every other student would if they did what you did. No special treatment, no daddy's money making this disappear. No more victims suffering in silence while you get away with it." The gym doors burst open again, this time admitting 2 police officers, followed closely by a woman Harper recognized as Detective Sarah Chen from the local news coverage of school safety initiatives. Behind them came Harper's mother, Sarah Mitchell, still in her nursing scrubs from her evening shift. "Harper!" Sarah rushed to her daughter, checking for injuries with practiced medical efficiency. "Are you hurt? When I got your text—" "I'm fine, Mom," Harper assured her, accepting her mother's fierce hug. "Better than fine, actually." Detective Chen surveyed the scene with experienced eyes, taking in the destroyed artwork, the scattered students, and the obvious power dynamic that had just been shattered. I'm going to need everyone to stay exactly where they are while we document this scene. Nobody leaves, nobody calls anyone, and absolutely nobody deletes anything from their phones. Austin made one last desperate attempt at damage control. Officer, there's been a misunderstanding. This girl attacked us. We were just trying to have a conversation, and she went crazy. Sir, Detective Chen said patiently, we have the security footage, the live stream recording, and multiple witness statements from students who saw the whole thing. Your conversation included destruction of property, theft, threats of blackmail, and attempted intimidation. The only thing Harper Mitchell did was defend herself when you escalated to physical violence. Madison Pierce, who had been quietly crying since the police arrived, suddenly spoke up. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Austin said we were just going to embarrass her a little, make her apologize. But then he kept making it worse and worse. And I knew it was wrong, but I was scared to stop him because he said he'd ruin me too if I didn't help. Madison, Austin hissed. Shut up. Don't say another word. No, Madison said, her voice growing stronger. I'm done being scared of you. I'm done helping you hurt people because I'm too weak to stand up to you. Harper was right. You're nothing but a bully who thinks daddy's money makes you untouchable. Detective Chen began reading Austin his rights as more students gathered outside the gym, phones pressed to the windows, capturing every moment of his public downfall. The golden boy who had terrorized McKinley High for years was being arrested, and everyone could see it happening. Coach Williams knelt beside Harper's scattered artwork, carefully collecting the salvageable pieces. I've seen your portfolio before, he said quietly. My daughter was in your art class last year. This destruction, it's not just vandalism, it's an attempt to destroy someone's dreams. Most of it can be rebuilt, Harper said, though her voice caught slightly as she saw the extent of the damage. I have photos of everything for my digital portfolio submissions. It's the principle that matters more than the actual pieces. The principle, said a new voice from the doorway, is exactly why this case will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Everyone turned to see District Attorney Richard Reed entering the gym, his face a mask of professional composure that couldn't quite hide his personal devastation. Behind him walked Austin's mother, Eleanor Reed, her designer clothes and perfect makeup unable to mask the shame and horror in her eyes. Dad, Austin started, relief flooding his voice. Thank God you're here. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding. Austin Reed, his father said formally, his voice echoing in the suddenly silent gym. You are under arrest for harassment, destruction of property, theft, and attempted blackmail. You have the right to remain silent, and I strongly suggest you exercise that right immediately. The shock on Austin's face was complete. Dad, what are you doing? I'm your son. You're a criminal, Richard Reed said quietly, the words seeming to age him 10 years as he spoke them. I've spent my entire career putting people in jail for doing exactly what you did here today. Did you really think I'd compromise everything I've worked for to cover up your crimes? Eleanor Reed stepped forward, her hands shaking as she approached Harper. Miss Mitchell, I am so deeply sorry. There are no words for what my son has done. No excuse for the pain he's caused you and your family. We will pay for every piece of art to be restored, every therapy session you need, every opportunity he tried to take from you. Harper looked at the woman, seeing genuine remorse alongside the social humiliation. Mrs. Reed, what I need isn't money. What I need is for this to never happen to another student. What I need is for the culture that created Austin to change. Principal Davidson, who had been growing increasingly pale throughout the proceedings, tried one more time to regain control. Now see here, this is still a school matter. Actually, Detective Chen said, consulting her notes, this is now a criminal matter. And Mr. Davidson, I'm going to need to speak with you about your role in the harassment complaints that were filed and apparently ignored over the past 3 years. The principal's face went white as he realized his own complicity was about to be exposed. Coach Williams stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had served his country before serving his school. Dave, I've been documenting every complaint you've buried, every incident you've ignored because the perpetrator's family wrote a check. Harper's case isn't isolated. It's part of a pattern of institutional corruption that ends today. Over the next hour, as police finished their investigation and statements were taken, a remarkable transformation occurred. Students who had been too afraid to speak up began coming forward with their own stories. Jasmine Washington, a sophomore who had been systematically excluded from study groups because Austin claimed she was probably cheating anyway. Marcus Torres, whose locker had been vandalized with racial slurs that Principal Davidson had dismissed as teenage pranks. Rebecca Kim, who had transferred schools after Austin spread rumors about her family's immigration status. Each story revealed the same pattern: harassment targeting students from less privileged backgrounds, complaints ignored or minimized by administration, and a culture of fear that protected perpetrators while silencing victims. Harper found herself at the center of it all, not as a victim anymore, but as a catalyst for change. Students approached her with a mixture of awe and gratitude, thanking her for having the courage to fight back when they couldn't. "How did you stay so calm?" asked Sarah Wynn, a junior who had witnessed the entire confrontation. "I would have been terrified." "I was terrified," Harper admitted, "but I was also tired of being afraid, tired of letting people like Austin make me feel small. My martial arts training taught me that real strength isn't about hurting people, it's about protecting yourself and others when bullies think they can take whatever they want." Word of the incident spread beyond McKinley High with lightning speed. Local news crews arrived, drawn by the spectacle of a district attorney arresting his own son. Social media exploded with videos of Harper's takedown, her calm statement to police, and Austin's public breakdown. The hashtag #QuietStrength began trending as students from other schools shared their own stories of standing up to bullies. 3 days later, Harper walked into a completely transformed McKinley High. The hallways buzzed with a different kind of energy, not the fearful whispers that had followed Austin's reign of terror, but excited conversations about change, justice, and possibility. Principal Davidson had resigned in disgrace after the FBI discovered evidence of bribery and corruption in his office. The new interim principal, Dr. Maria Santos, had immediately implemented a zero-tolerance policy for harassment and established an anonymous reporting system that actually worked. Austin Reed, Caleb Wilson, and Ethan Parker had all been expelled and were awaiting trial on various criminal charges. Madison Pierce, who had cooperated fully with investigators, received a lesser punishment but had voluntarily enrolled in therapy and community service programs. But the most significant change was in Harper herself. Gone was the hunched, defensive posture of someone trying to disappear. She walked with confidence, spoke with authority, and carried herself like someone who had discovered her own power. Harper called Mrs. Peterson, the art teacher. As Harper passed her classroom, "Could I see you for a moment?" Harper entered to find her teacher standing beside an easel, displaying a large canvas. "I wanted you to see this before anyone else. It's my submission for the State Art Education Conference." The painting showed a young woman standing amid scattered papers and broken dreams, but instead of despair, her posture radiated strength and determination. Around her, other figures were rising, inspired by her courage to stand. At the bottom, in elegant script, were the words, "When one voice speaks truth, others find their courage to join." "It's beautiful," Harper whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "It's you, Mrs. Peterson said simply, "what you did last week. It didn't just save your own future, Harper. It saved this whole school." The weeks that followed brought a parade of opportunities Harper had never imagined. College recruiters, impressed by her academic record and moved by her story, began reaching out with scholarship offers that went far beyond what she had dared to dream. Harvard, Yale, Stanford. Universities that had seemed impossibly out of reach suddenly wanted her to visit their campuses. But perhaps more importantly, Harper found herself becoming an advocate for other students facing harassment and discrimination. She started a peer support group that met weekly in the same music room where Austin had tried to break her spirit. The group grew from 5 students to 50, then to over 100, as word spread about the safe space Harper had created. "The thing about bullies," Harper told the group during one meeting, "is that they count on our silence. They rely on us being too scared, too ashamed, or too isolated to fight back. But when we support each other, when we document their actions and refuse to suffer alone, they lose their power over us." 6 months after the gymnasium confrontation, Harper stood before a packed auditorium at the State Education Conference, delivering a keynote speech about youth advocacy and institutional change. In the audience sat her mother, beaming with pride, Coach Williams, who had become her mentor, and Dr. Ralph Santos, who had transformed McKinley High into a model of inclusive education. "People often ask me if I regret fighting back that day," Harper said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent auditorium. "If I wish I had just taken the abuse and tried to blend in. The answer is simple. I regret only that it took me so long to find my voice, She paused, scanning the faces of educators, students, and activists who hung on her every word. Because here's what I learned: quiet doesn't mean weak. Scholarship student doesn't mean lesser. And sometimes, the girl everyone overlooks is exactly the one who will change everything. The standing ovation lasted for 5 minutes. Austin Reed, meanwhile, was serving his sentence in juvenile detention, participating in court, ordered therapy sessions that were slowly helping him understand the depth of harm he had caused. His father, career destroyed by the scandal, had started a foundation for victims of school harassment. His mother had become an unlikely advocate for anti-bullying legislation. During one supervised phone call, Austin had asked to speak with Harper. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," he had said, his voice hollow with genuine remorse, "but I need you to know that what you did, it saved me from becoming someone even worse. The therapy is helping me understand why I hurt people, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it." Harper had listened in silence, then replied, "I don't forgive you yet, Austin, but I hope someday I can. What matters now is that you use this experience to become someone who protects others instead of hurting them." A year later, Harper graduated as valedictorian, her acceptance speech focusing not on her own achievements, but on the collective power of students who refused to accept injustice. She had chosen to attend Stanford on a full scholarship, planning to study law with a focus on civil rights and youth advocacy, but before leaving for college, she had one final responsibility to fulfill. Harper stood in the same gymnasium where her life had changed, facing a new group of students who had gathered for the first annual Courage Day assembly at McKinley High. "This room," she said, her voice echoing off the walls that had witnessed her transformation, "used to be a place where I was told I didn't belong, where bullies thought they could break my spirit and destroy my future. But it became something else entirely, the place where I discovered that one person's courage can inspire a revolution." She looked out at the faces before her, freshmen who would never know the fear that had once permeated these halls, seniors who had found their own voices in the years since Austin's downfall, teachers who now felt empowered to protect their students. Each of you has that same power inside you, the power to stand up, to speak truth, to refuse to let anyone make you smaller than you are. And when you use that power, not to hurt others, but to protect yourself and those around you, you become part of something bigger than any individual bully could ever be. As Harper left McKinley High for the final time, she carried with her not just the memory of her victory, but the knowledge that she had helped create a legacy of courage that would outlast any single student or administrator. The quiet girl who had once tried to disappear had become a voice that would echo through the halls of justice for years to come. And somewhere, in schools across the country, other quiet students were finding their strength, standing up to their own bullies, and discovering that sometimes the most powerful weapon against injustice is simply refusing to be silent. Harper Mitchell had learned that true strength wasn't about the perfect roundhouse kick or the ability to defeat opponents twice her size. It was about the courage to stand up when everything inside you wants to hide, to speak truth when lies are easier, and to fight for others even when you're still learning to fight for yourself. The revolution had begun with a single word: no, and it would continue with every student who found the courage to speak up, every teacher who chose to listen, and every community that decided bullies would no longer be tolerated. No matter how much money their families had or how much power they thought they wielded, Harper's story was ending, but the movement she had started was just beginning. And that perhaps was the greatest victory of all. 5 years later, Harper Mitchell stood in the Supreme Court building, having just argued her first case as a civil rights attorney. The shy scholarship student who had once scrubbed floors to appease bullies now fought for justice at the highest levels of American law. Her phone buzzed with messages from former McKinley High students, now teachers, doctors, engineers, and activists themselves, all carrying forward the lesson she had taught them, that ordinary people possess extraordinary power when they refuse to accept injustice. The revolution that started in a high school gymnasium had become a movement that would reshape how America protects its most vulnerable students. And it all began with one quiet girl who discovered that sometimes the most important battle isn't the one that makes you famous, it's the one that makes others brave enough to fight their own. If Harper's story resonates with you, if you've ever felt overlooked or underestimated, remember this: your voice matters, your courage is contagious, and your refusal to stay silent might just be the spark someone else needs to find their own strength. The quiet revolution continues, and it starts with each of us choosing to stand up, speak out, and never again allow anyone to make us feel small. 10 years after that fateful day in the gymnasium, Harper received a letter that would bring her story full circle. It was from a young girl in Ohio, a quiet 7th grader named Emma, who had watched Harper's viral takedown video during her darkest moment of being bullied. "Dear Miss Mitchell," the letter began, "yesterday I said no to my bullies for the first time. I thought of you when I stood up, and I wanted you to know that your courage gave me mine. Thank you for showing me that quiet girls can change the world too." Harper smiled as she folded the letter, knowing that somewhere across the country, another revolution was just beginning. The ripples of that single moment of defiance in a high school gym would continue spreading, touching lives she would never know, inspiring courage she would never witness, proving that one person's refusal to be silent can echo through generations of young voices finding their strength. As Harper looked out her office window at the busy Washington, D.C. and actual streets below, she reflected on how far she had traveled from that scared teenager who once hid behind thrift store sweaters. The girl who feared confrontation had become a warrior for justice. The student who cleaned floors in humiliation now argued cases that would protect millions of children from similar abuse. Her greatest achievement wasn't the Supreme Court victory or the prestigious law degree hanging on her wall. It was knowing that every day, somewhere in America, a quiet student was finding their voice because Harper Mitchell had once found hers. The revolution wasn't just continuing, it was multiplying, creating an unstoppable force of young people who understood their worth and refused to let anyone diminish it. That evening, Harper walked through the hallways of a new high school where she had been invited to speak. The faces looked familiar, not because she knew these students, but because she recognized the mixture of hope and fear in their eyes. Some carried themselves with the confidence that came from knowing they were protected. Others still hunched their shoulders, trying to make themselves invisible. She paused at a display case filled with student artwork, remembering her own destroyed portfolio and how it had felt like the end of everything. A young boy approached her nervously, clutching a sketch pad to his chest. "Miss Mitchell," he whispered, "I heard your story. I wanted to show you something." He opened his pad to reveal a drawing of a girl standing in a gymnasium, surrounded by scattered papers but radiating strength. At the bottom he had written, "Courage is contagious." Harper knelt to his eye level, seeing herself in his shy demeanor and artistic talent. "What's your name?" she asked, gently. "Marcus," he replied. "And I think someone's been picking on you," Harper said, recognizing the signs she once knew so well. Marcus nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "They say I'm weird because I like to draw instead of play sports." Harper handed him her business card, the same one she gave to every young person who needed to know they weren't alone. "Marcus, your art is beautiful, and anyone who makes you feel bad about your talents is the one with the problem, not you." But more importantly, she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You never have to face this alone. There are people who will stand with you, who will help you find your voice when you're ready to use it." As she watched Marcus walk away, his shoulders a little straighter than before, Harper knew that her story would never truly end. It would live on in every Marcus who learned to stand tall, every Emma who found her courage, every quiet student who discovered that their voice mattered. The revolution that began in a McKinley High gymnasium continued in moments like these. One conversation, one connection, one act of courage at a time,